Former Donald Trump advisor Peter Navarro is spending his 4-month prison sentence in the prison's law library, preaching what the first 100 days of another Trump White House might look like. Navarro is behind bars for contempt of Congress after he defied the January 6 House Select Committee's subpoena. He hopes to get out in time for July's Republican National Convention. In an email interview with the news site Semaphore, Navarro predicts a second Trump term includes getting rid of the Federal Reserve chair altogether and starting mass immigrant deportations, millions of people. Semaphore's senior editor Gina Chan interviewed Navarro and is with us now. Gina, thanks so much for coming on the lead. We appreciate it. Explain why you think it's important to highlight Navarro's insight as to what a second Trump term might look like.
Well, he's obviously very influential because he did go to prison for the former president. He is still very much tied to the inner circle. He is regularly visited by people like Don Trump Jr.
Really? He visited him in prison?
Yes, just recently, one of these past weekends. And so I think if Trump wins, he will have a prominent role. And so what he says matters. And he was obviously one of the big forces behind the Chinese tariffs and a lot of other sort of protectionist policies. So it's important to hear him out, even though he is in prison.
Absolutely. So on Navarro's prediction about Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, Navarro says, quote, "My guess is that this punctilious non-economist will be gone in 100 days, one way or the other." He then brings up in his interview with you possible replacements: former Council of Economic Advisors Chair Kevin Hassett, former CEA Chair Tyler Goodspeed. When you talk with economic experts, what do they say about such a move?
I mean, they are worried about what is going to happen to the Fed. Traditionally, that is a very independent agency, obviously needs to be to steer the economy without regard to politics. And given how difficult the fight against inflation has been, who sits in that chair really matters. And one of the things that Wall Street's really worried about is this move around the Fed and whether politics could interfere with managing the American economy.
But is he talking about getting rid of Powell or getting rid of the entire Federal Reserve?
Well, it would be a bit difficult to get rid of the whole board because they are approved by the Senate. There's a whole nomination process.
No, of course it'd be difficult, but is his goal to get rid of it all?
There are some people on the Fed right now who have been more supportive of Trump's policies and have been critical of the current Federal Reserve. But certainly Jay Powell was in the hot seat even before all of this in Trump's first term. Trump called him an enemy of the people, something that you don't traditionally hear about a Fed chair. And so I think he will be a major target in another Trump term.
So Navarro also touted Trump's tough stance on China, advocating for more tariffs on Chinese products. What do economists think about that? What kind of impact might that have on the economy?
I mean, economists have already talked about how the tariffs have affected inflation that adds on to consumer prices. But honestly, in this area, this is where Trump and Biden agree, and they're kind of trying to outdo each other on the tariffs front. You know, Biden just recently unveiled tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and various other products, and Trump then immediately said he would put 200% tariffs on Chinese products. So in this area, they're actually on the same page.
When it comes to the mass deportations, I heard Senator Marco Rubio the other day speculate there might be 20 or 25 million undocumented immigrants in the country, that the 15 million that people talk about, that's like 10, 15 years ago. How serious are they about actually rounding up 20, 25 million people? Many of whom, whether or not we like it, contribute a great deal to the economy, especially when it comes to agriculture and manufacturing. How serious are they about all 20, 25 million?
I think they are very serious, and they will figure out ways to pull the levers of government to do that. But to your point about the economy, we already have more job openings than people to fill them. And so having these people removed could actually be a detriment to our economy.
So I do have to ask you about just the process of this all.
Yes.
Because obviously he's in prison. I didn't know that prisoners, maybe he's in a low security one, I don't know, but had access to the internet. Like, I assume you reached out to him through a friend or a lawyer or whatever, but tell me about interviewing him via internet when he's in prison.
Yeah, no, it was through a contact. He has a prison consultant who is in regular touch with him, so he's the one who passed on the message to Peter. I had so many questions that it was actually difficult to do it over the phone, and he actually works in the law library. He's 74 and was given a more sort of coveted job. At one point, there was actually discussion about whether Don Jr. would be the one to take handwritten responses from Peter, hand them to Don Jr., and then get them transferred to me. He decided there were so many that he would actually type them out in email, which, by the way, is also where he's been wrapping up his book that's coming out around the Republican National Convention.
And how much do you think he's still plugged into Trump world? It sounds like a lot if he's still talking to Trump Jr., who's obviously a very prominent member of MAGA world. In terms of policy and planning, how much do you think he's still contributing ideas?
I think he's contributing a lot. I mean, there's always a question about who has influence in the Trump world, but obviously with his connections and his loyalty to the president, which Trump really values, I think puts him in a pretty good spot. And if he gets out in time, he's actually hoping to speak at the Republican National Convention in July.
He could have participated. I mean, he could have honored the subpoena and just pleaded the fifth. He didn't. Does he regret that?
I don't think he regrets it one bit. Now he's a martyr. He gets to show what he did for the president, and hopefully, I think he's hoping that will pay off in a second term.